The cub roared. Not a big cat roar. Not a warning. A sound like metal scraping ice. Sharp, frightened, furious. Commander Halverson sat on the deck plating with both hands up, palms open, trying to look bigger and smaller at the same time. Deck CS corridor lights pulsed red, bathing Orion Outpost in emergency glow. Behind him, security rifles tracked a target no one wanted to shoot. The target stood in front of them. A tiger cub, except not any tiger born on Earth. Silver and charcoal stripes shimmered across its fur as if starlight had been stitched into every hair. Its eyes were a clean, unsettling blue. Its paws were too large for its body, and its teeth were too sharp for its age. It took one step forward. Halverson's voice shook. Easy, easy. The cub's lips lifted. It did not bite. It chose to roar again. Nora Vale pushed through the ring of armed crew before anyone could stop her. "Don't fire," she said. Someone hissed. "Nora, it already attacked." "It attacked fear," she snapped, then softened. "Not us." The cub's ears flicked toward her. Its head turned, just a fraction. Recognition. Not trust. A memory. The first face it had ever seen. 3 hours earlier, Nora had opened a dead cargo pod drifting near Saturn's outer debris field. Cold vapor spilled out, and there it was, curled into itself, ribs showing, fur clumped with frost. A cub. A predator. A baby. Its eyes had opened slowly. Blue on blue, locking with Nora's. It didn't growl. It didn't lunge. It just stared, shaking, as if the universe had finally decided to look back. Nora had whispered without thinking, "Hey, you're safe." The cub blinked once, then leaned into the warmth of her glove. Now, on Deck C, the steady voice was all that stood between a frightened cub and a frightened crew. Halverson swallowed. "Vale, we can't." "You can," Nora said. "You just don't want to." A security officer shifted. It's unpredictable." Nora nodded. "So are we." The cub's tail lashed once. It glanced toward the rifles. Its breathing accelerated. Nora saw the truth hit like cold water. It wasn't hunting. It was cornered. The threat wasn't the teeth. It was the panic behind the teeth. Nora took one careful step. The cub's shoulders dipped. Ready to spring. "Don't move." Halverson barked. Nora stopped. She didn't look at him. She looked at the cub. "I remember," she said softly, "when everyone is bigger than you and nobody is listening." The cub's eyes didn't leave her face. A baton sparked in someone's hand. Nora's stomach dropped. "No. Don't." Electricity cracked. The cub flinched like it had been struck, even though it wasn't touched. It recoiled into the wall and then, like a fuse blown, its restraint vanished. It sprang. People screamed. Rifles came up. Halverson threw his arms over his head, and the cub landed directly in front of him, forepaws braced, head lifted, mouth open in a full, shaking roar. Close enough to bite. It didn't. It only screamed its fear into the air. Nora dropped to one knee, slow, keeping herself low. "Hey," she breathed. "Look at me." The cub's eyes flicked to her again. It wasn't listening to words. It was listening to intent. Nora let her voice fall into the same calm rhythm she had used in the pod. One word. Not shouted. Given. Enough. The cub froze mid-breath. Its jaw closed gently, as if a switch inside it had flipped from fight to collapse. Its legs trembled. It blinked once, heavy, and folded onto the deck. Asleep. Silence rushed in so fast it felt louder than the siren. Halverson lowered his hands like he couldn't believe they still belonged to him. "What did you do?" Nora didn't move. She just watched its chest rise and fall. "I listened," she whispered. They moved the cub into a containment bay without restraints, at Nora's insistence. Halverson's forearm was bruised and scraped, but unbitten. "It could have taken your hand," the medic muttered. Halverson stared through the glass at the sleeping animal. "Why didn't it?" Nora's answer came quiet. "Because it isn't hunting. It's surviving." She sat beside the bay, recording notes into her pad. Juvenile. Severe stress response to electricity and loud commands. Imprints on voice patterns. Responds to calm tonal cadence. The cub shifted in its sleep. A tiny sound escaped it. Almost a whimper. Nora slid a warmed blanket across the floor. The cub pressed closer without waking. Halverson watched from the doorway. "You're saying it understands you." Nora didn't look away. "I'm saying it understands safety." Between alarms and repairs, Nora sat in the small Xenolab beside the bay and replayed the pod's sensor logs. There was a pattern in the noise, an ultrasonic pulse buried under the static, repeating every 60 seconds, like a heartbeat designed for machines. A beacon. Not just to track the pod. To wake the cub. No wonder it had snapped the moment the baton sparked. Its nervous system had already been vibrating on the edge for hours. Halverson stood behind her, watching the waveform. "You figured that out fast." Nora's eyes stayed on the screen. "I've been around panic," she said. "It has a shape." He hesitated. "You keep saying you remember." Nora's jaw tightened. "My brother died on a mining tug," she said quietly. "Hull breach. Loud alarms. People shouting. Nobody listening. The last thing I heard him say was that he couldn't breathe." Halverson's expression softened. He didn't apologize. He didn't offer comfort that wouldn't fit. He just nodded once. "Then you know what this is." Nora tapped the glass gently with her knuckle. "This is a kid," she whispered. "And someone out there paid to turn a kid into a weapon." The cub lifted its head, blinking at her voice, then settled again. Nora lowered her tone, the way her mother used to lower hers during Nora's own childhood storms. "Enough," she breathed, more promise than command. The cub's ears relaxed, and Nora felt the tiniest part of her chest unclench. At 0300 station time, Orion Outpost shuddered. Impact. The lights flickered. Then alarm screamed, unauthorized docking, breach detected, multiple intruders. Raiders. Halverson snapped orders into his comm: all teams, fall back to choke points. Protect reactor spine and life support. Nora's blood turned to ice. They'll come for the cub. Halverson's eyes narrowed. Why would anyone risk a station assault for a baby predator? Nora swallowed. Unless it isn't just a baby. Gunfire snapped closer. A door down the hall buckled inward. The cub woke inside the bay, not roaring, watching. Nora leaned toward the bay speaker. "Hey. It's Nora. Stay." The cub blinked once. Then the outer door blew inward. Raiders in matte black armor flooded Deck C, moving like they already owned the map. One pointed a weapon at Nora. "Step away from the glass." Halverson raised his rifle. "Back off." The raider's voice held a smile. "We don't want your station. We want what you found." Nora's stomach dropped. "How do you know?" "Because our employer paid to hide a tracking beacon in that pod," the raider said. "Open the bay." So the pod hadn't been an accident. It had been a delivery. A trap. Nora's gaze cut to the cub. It was staring at the raiders with rigid stillness. The raider signaled, and a second squad rolled in a small drone, an emitter with crackling prongs. Electric. The cub's body went tight. A growl built low in its chest. Nora stepped forward. "Don't. You shock it. You lose control of it." The raider's weapon didn't waver. "Then control it for us." Shots cracked. Halverson fired first. The raider staggered. The corridor erupted into chaos. Sparks, smoke, shouted orders. The drone discharged. A bright arc snapped into the bay panel. The lock system flickered. The containment door slid open. The cub stepped out. For one terrifying second, nobody moved. The cub stood between two worlds, crew on one side, raiders on the other. Red emergency light painted its silver fur like a warning sign. Its eyes found the drone. Its whole body shook. Then it looked at Nora. A question. Nora forced her voice to stay steady. "Hey, look at me." The cub's gaze anchored. Nora breathed out and gave the word again, this time not to sleep. To choose. Enough. The cub's ears pinned back. It took one step forward. Toward the raiders. It roared, full and young, and the note inside it changed from fear to possession. The nearest raider fired. The cub moved like a thrown shadow, closing distance before the raider could correct aim. It slammed into his legs and sent him down. It didn't tear. It pinned, snarling inches from the visor until the raider's hands went up. Another raider swung the drone. Nora shouted, "No!" The cub snapped at the air and knocked the drone aside, claws sparking on metal. It shoved forward, forcing the raider back to the breach. Their formation broke. That was the turn, fear changing sides. Halverson rallied his team. Push them out. Security advanced. The raiders retreated, firing blind, then vanished into their own smoke. The corridor fell quiet except for the hiss of damaged vents. The cub stood there, chest heaving, then turned to Nora. Nora approached carefully and placed her palm against its cheek. "Good," she whispered. "You did good." Its ears relaxed. It leaned into her hand, once, like a promise. After emergency teams sealed the breach, Nora sat against the wall outside the repaired bay. Halverson lowered himself onto a crate opposite her, exhaustion carved into his face. "That was insane," he said. Nora nodded. "Yes." Halverson's gaze drifted to the cub, now curled under a blanket, no restraints. "It protected us." Nora's throat tightened. "Because it thinks we're its pack." Halverson exhaled. "Are we?" Nora looked at him, eyes tired but steady. "We can be," she said. "If we don't turn it into a weapon." Halverson set his rifle on the floor, out of reach, like an offering. "Then we do this right." Nora's shoulders loosened. "Thank you." The cub lifted its head at their voices and padded to the glass. Nora leaned closer. "You're safe." Its eyelids drooped. It was running on terror, adrenaline, and a body too small for everything it had survived. Nora lowered her voice into warmth. "One word. The same word. A word that meant, you can stop fighting now. Enough." The cub's breathing slowed. Its chin lowered. And it fell asleep again, not from defeat, but from trust. Nora stayed in the quiet observation nook long after her shift ended, watching the cub's steady breathing and the gentle rise and fall of its chest. Halverson returned with 2 mugs of station coffee and offered one without speaking. Nora took it. "We should name it," she said. Halverson's mouth twitched. "You already did." Nora glanced up. He nodded toward the bay. "Every time you talk to it, it listens like you're the whole sky." Nora watched the sleeping cub. "Nova," she said, because it showed up out of nowhere and lit up the whole station. Halverson tested the word. Nova. It fit. Nora's expression sobered. "They'll come back." Halverson's jaw tightened. "Then we'll be ready." Nora shook her head slightly. "No. We'll be human." Halverson raised a brow. Nora looked through the glass at the small predator asleep under a blanket. "We won't win by being crueler than raiders," she said. "We'll win by being the first safe thing it's ever had." For a moment, the station was quiet enough to hear the hum of life support. 1,000 lives held together by metal, math, and hope. And one small predator asleep because a human voice told it the world could pause. Humanity didn't dominate the stars because it was the strongest. Humanity dominated the stars because it could look at a monster and still offer safety first. Enough. And the universe listened. If this moment touched you, comment your favorite scene: the first roar, the enough freeze, or the raider retreat. Like, subscribe, and join Survival Arena HFY for more stories where humanity proves its place among the stars.